Hey everyone, it's Morgan and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing an acrylic painting of a big purple flower. But Morgan, why a big purple flower, you may ask? Well, I have an answer. My room is purple and it's the same shade as this dark purple, and I made this painting to replace another painting that's already hung up in my room, and that painting's purple. It's a painting of this lady in like a purple dress, and frankly I am just so sick of looking at it and so done with it that it's time to replace it, and why not replace it with one of my own creations? So, like usual, I begin this drawing with the sketch. I'm just using a regular number 2 mechanical pencil, and I'm just trying to lightly sketch out the entire thing. The reason that I want to do it lightly is because, well, you don't really want to have a heavy hand when you're drawing. But the other reason is you don't want that pencil to show later on in the drawing. And this step is really, really important because if you mess it up in the beginning, you can't fix it later on. So make sure that your hand is light as possible on the page. And if you sketch kind of dark like I do, at the end, just go over the whole thing lightly with an eraser. But just this step is so crucial. So, the next thing I do within the painting is I use my Pentel brush pen, which I love. And I'm just saying that because I love it. I gotta throw it out there. It's a watercolor pen that holds water within it, so if you squeeze a little bit while you're using it, a little bit of water comes out and it dilutes the color. And this is just so useful. So I'm using this pen to just apply some yellow and pink, and I kind of drip it down and then squeeze a little bit so some water comes out to create like a dripping effect, because I want the pink to look like it's dripping off the petals of the flowers. And next comes the fun part. I start by mixing a whole lot of paint, and I apply the whole thing as a base layer across the entire sketch of the flower. I don't miss any white spots, nothing. Now, hopefully, when you're doing this, it'll cover up all your pencil lines. Unfortunately, now it's hard to distinguish between the petals, but we'll fix it in a little bit. What's important for now is that we get this base layer down, and that it's all one consistent color. Then after that, we go in with a darker color and begin to distinguish between the petals again. This is our first layer of shadows. To blend this out, you're going to need at least 3 colors. You'll need the lightest color, which is the base color, and then the dark color, which is the shadow, and a mid-tone between those 2 colors. Apply the mid-tone to the side of the dark tone, and rub your brush against the line that's separating them. This will fuse it together a little bit and make it look a little more hairy instead of so geometrically straight. Then the next thing I do is add a little bit more of the lightest color to the side of it. Sometimes I mess up a little bit and use too much of the lighter color, and then I kind of backtrack and I have to do it again. But that's okay, because it's paint and the paint's movable, and you can always go over your mistakes. So don't worry about it if you mess up a little bit, because you can tell in the video that I do if you look closer. In fact, I actually think it's a good idea if you mess up a little bit and put a little bit too much of the lighter color, a little bit too much of the shadow, because then when you're going over it again, you're adding another layer to it. And layers is really important in a painting like this, because layers helps you blend, and it just helps bring out the painting so much more. So, one more time, don't worry if you mess up. In fact, messing up is kind of good, because layers, layers, layers. You can see that I put on so many layers. I'll put down a dark color, and then I'll move my brush over it, and boom, it's gone. And then I do it again, and again, and again, and again. And you have to know that that's perfectly fine, and that that's probably going to happen, and it's completely a natural thing. I'm no expert at painting. I'm not a professional. This is just the way that I paint. And I think that a lot of beginners would probably paint the same way as I do. So once I'm done with these shadows, I move on to the highlights. This will be a color that's slightly lighter than our base color, but not pure white. This color is going to be applied in the opposite direction that you applied your shadows, and it's going to be on the opposite side of each petal. And the good news is that the highlights are applied in the same way that the shadows are. The same blending techniques and everything. I even use the same brush, I'm pretty sure. I use the same brush throughout most of this painting because the colors were supposed to be blended together so nice and fluidly that it shouldn't matter what color is on my brush, that it would just blend in nicely and look natural. So the next step is adding in a whole new color. This color I picked a kind of dark pink with a little purple within it so that it was still kind of part of this color family, but it stood out just a little bit. I applied this to the left side of each petal just to make it kind of stick out a little bit more and look a little bit more three-dimensional. As you can see on my palette to the left of the painting, I kept this paint, I guess. I kept this paint that kind of looks like watercolor, very, very thin. That's why I just called it watercolor, because it was so diluted that it was basically just water. It was just tinted water. And I did this on purpose because I wanted it to blend as easily as possible. Once that dries, I go over the pink again with one more layer. I also fix up some of the edges and just clean up a little bit around the painting. Now, the next step was adding some dimension to the flowers. Using this dark purple, I would use about one big stroke in the center of each petal, one, maybe two, and then I would add the dark purple in next to it as a shadow. Then I just kept feathering the two colors together until it blended out nicely. Since it got kind of dark after doing this, I would have to go back in and add some more highlights and then some more shadows, highlights, shadows, and like I just keep mentioning, more and more layers. After waiting a very long time for that to dry, maybe like a couple days, I moved on to the next important step of this painting. This was adding the darkest shadows. To do this, I used the water brush pen again, with a color slightly off from black. I didn't want the shadows to be too intense, so I mixed a little bit of purple in with a dark gray, and then added a tiny bit of black. That way the shadows would look very dark, but still fit in with the painting. After that, I used a small sponge to apply the next color. This was kind of like a lilac, and to do this, I just kept dabbing up and down on the painting. Once I was done with the purple, I did the exact same thing with the black as well. Then I went back to purple, and back to black, and back to purple, and layered this as well. Although, I did have to wait a few minutes in between each layer, because if I just applied them back to back, they wouldn't layer over each other, they would just mix in to create one muddy, disgusting color. So, be warned. Make sure you give it a little bit of time to dry in between layers. The next thing I added was the true highlights. For this, I used, brace yourselves, pure white. Pure titanium white, I think. Anyways. I used this for the highlights and just kept using that same blending method. It was feathering those together and using the old color, layering it on top of the highlight, and then layering the highlight on top of that color again, and just keep layering them together until they look beautiful. Once I was done with this, I used the same sponge after cleaning it, and I applied yellow over top of these two colors. And it is at this point in the video that the sun just gave me a big middle finger and just kept going in and out from behind some clouds. So please excuse the lighting issues that just keep going on. If they give anyone like a headache or anything, I'm sorry. But, you know, Mother Nature just wanted to do that to me, so. The next thing I did was fix up some small details again. Now that I had put on more layers and everything, I had to make sure that each layer was nice and crisp and sharp. I'm just such a perfectionist that I just keep going back and fixing things, and it's totally evident in the video, and I also can't speak, in case you were wondering. And then, the next detail I added was using pure white again. I used the brush pen once again, and made these little curly things coming out of the yellow spots inside the center of the flower. This I had to use a lot of layers for, because I was struggling to get it to not be translucent on top of the yellow. Once I was finished adding the white into the center, I went back and did my final little details. And after that, the painting was finally complete. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this video, and you know, give me some feedback, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!